Hi everybody. In this video, we're going to talk about the rules for multiplying and dividing. And these are pretty simple actually. In fact, I think they're a lot simpler than the rules for adding and subtracting and the rewriting rules. So here they are. If you have the same signs, the answer will be positive. If you have different signs, the answer will be negative. That's it. So let's look at some examples here. 5 times 4. So this is a positive 5 and this is a positive 4. So we have the same sign. The sign meaning if it's positive or negative. So we have the same signs here. They're both positive. So according to our rule, if we have these same signs, the answer will be positive. So 5 times 4 would give us a positive 20. Okay, and you already knew that from elementary school, but now that we have these rules, you can see that they still fit with the rules that you already knew. What about this one? Negative 5 times 4. So we have a negative times a positive, so the signs are different, and if we have different signs, then the answer will be negative. So that one is going to be negative 20. Okay, 5 times negative 4. Again, we have different signs. One is positive, one is negative. So that's going to give us a negative answer. So this would also be negative 20. And here we have negative 5 times negative 4. So we have a negative times another negative. So we have the same signs here. So the answer will be positive. So that's going to be a positive 20. Okay, and it works exactly the same for division. If I have a positive divided by a negative, the signs are different, the answer will be negative. So that's going to be negative 4. So basically you're just doing, to figure out where the 4 and the 20s come from, you're just doing it like you normally would. So for example, if I ignore the sign for a second, 20 divided by 5 is 4. But then I just have to remember that since the signs are different, my answer is going to be negative. Same thing as over here. It's the same thing over here. If I ignore the sign for a second, I know that 5 times 4 is 20, but then I just have to remember since the signs are different, my answer is going to be negative. All right, so let's just finish this up. We have a negative divided by a positive, so the signs are different. So this is going to be a negative answer. Whoops. So, what? So negative 4. Here we have a negative divided by a negative, so the signs are the same, meaning that the answer will be positive. So this is going to give us a positive 4. I could be writing a little plus symbol in here if I wanted to for all these positive ones. You could do that. You don't have to. People usually don't write the positive symbol, but you could if you wanted to. And finally, the last one, I have a positive divided by a positive. So these signs are the same. So the answer will also be positive. Okay, so that will be a positive 4. Now, there's actually another way of thinking about this. Okay, another way of thinking about it is that multiplying or dividing by a negative changes the sign. So let's go through these again quickly, thinking about it this way. So just remember, if we multiply or divide by a negative, then the sign will change. So for example, if I start with a positive and multiply by another positive, the sign is not going to change. So my original sign was positive, the answer is still going to be positive. If I start with a negative and I multiply by a positive, again, if I multiply by a positive, that's not going to change the sign. So the original sign was negative, the answer is still going to be negative. If I start with a positive and multiply by a negative, so multiplying by a negative changes the sign. So if I started with a positive and then I change the sign, my answer is going to be negative. Now, if I start with a negative and then multiply by a negative, so this negative is going to change the sign. So if I started with a negative, the sign will change to a positive. If I start with a positive, divide by a negative, that negative is going to change the sign. So if I started with a positive, then the answer will change sign and it'll be negative. Here I started with a negative and I divided by a positive. So a positive is not going to change the sign. So if I started with a negative, then the answer will still be negative. For this one, I started with a negative and then I divided by another negative. So this negative is going to change the sign. So if I started with a negative, the sign will change and the answer will be positive. Here I started with a positive and I divided by a positive. Dividing by a positive is not going to change the sign. So since I started with a positive, the sign is not going to change and the answer will still be positive. So that's just another way that you can think about it. You can think about it either way, that, whichever way makes more sense to you. If you like thinking about it this way, then that's fine. If you want to just continue thinking about it like this, same signs, answer will be positive, different signs, answer will be negative, then you could think about it that way. Okay? So that's it. I personally think that the rules for multiplying and dividing are a lot easier than the rules for adding and subtracting. So have a great day.